The Vexari were the nightmare of every peaceful world in the galaxy. These cold-blooded killers had built their entire civilization around one thing: the hunt. With their razor-sharp claws, lightning-fast reflexes, and ruthless minds, they had crushed countless species across the stars. When they discovered humanity, they saw nothing more than fresh meat for their entertainment. The Vexari lived for the thrill of stalking weaker races. They loved watching terror spread through their victims' eyes right before the kill. To them, humans looked soft, slow, and completely defenseless. What could these fragile beings possibly do against the galaxy's most feared predators? The attacks began without warning. Remote human settlements became hunting grounds as Vexari raiders swept through the outer colonies like a deadly storm. Families vanished overnight. Entire towns were reduced to smoking ruins. The few survivors who escaped told horrifying stories of creatures that moved like shadows and struck like lightning. Colony after colony fell silent. Fear rippled through human space as desperate messages reached Earth. Parents clutched their children tighter. Soldiers stared helplessly at the stars, knowing death could drop from the sky at any moment. The Vexari fed on this terror, believing they had found their easiest prey yet. But while families trembled in their homes, something else was stirring in the shadows. A secret organization called the Ghost Battalion had been waiting for exactly this kind of threat. Hidden deep within military command, this elite group had spent decades preparing for the unthinkable. The Ghost Battalion wasn't just soldiers. They were brilliant scientists, master engineers, and tactical geniuses all rolled into one deadly package. While the rest of humanity lived in peace, these guardians had been building weapons that most people couldn't even imagine. Invisible ships that could slip past any sensor, energy guns that could slice through solid steel, robot fighters that moved faster than any living creature. When the Vexari struck their first target, they had no idea they were walking into a trap that had been years in the making. The counterattack came like a bolt from the blue. Vexari hunting packs suddenly found themselves surrounded by enemies they couldn't see. Ghost ships materialized from thin air, unleashing devastating firepower before vanishing again. The hunters who had terrorized the galaxy for centuries were now running for their lives. Vexari warriors who had never known defeat watched in shock as their weapons bounced harmlessly off human armor. Their fastest hunters were outrun by mechanical soldiers that never tired, never hesitated, and never missed. The predators had become the prey, and they didn't know how to handle it. Panic spread through Vexari ranks like wildfire. How had these weak humans become so dangerous? Where had this incredible technology come from? The galaxy's most feared hunters suddenly found themselves looking over their shoulders, afraid of shadows. But the Vexari weren't about to give up their reign of terror without a fight. They regrouped, brought in their best warriors, and developed new hunting strategies. The war that followed would push both species to their absolute limits. Every battle became more intense than the last. The Vexari adapted their tactics, while humans pushed their technology even further. Lives were lost on both sides as the conflict spiraled into something neither race had expected. Human colonies fortified themselves behind walls of steel and energy, but the relentless Vexari pressure never let up. In one legendary battle, human commander Blake led a daring raid deep into enemy territory. Using cloaked ships, his team struck at a crucial Vexari supply depot, cutting off resources to their frontline forces. The mission succeeded beyond all expectations, dealing a crippling blow to the enemy war machine. Another unforgettable moment came when a tiny human outpost, surrounded and outnumbered 100-1, held off a massive Vexari assault using nothing but automated defenses and sheer determination. The defenders' brilliant tactics turned certain defeat into an inspiring victory that boosted morale across human space. Heroes emerged from the chaos, soldiers who sacrificed everything to save their comrades, engineers who worked miracles under impossible conditions, and commanders who turned desperate situations into stunning victories. The war was bringing out the very best in humanity. As battles raged across the galaxy, human intelligence officers began noticing something strange. Vexari communications contained odd patterns, messages that didn't quite make sense. Someone was feeding information to both sides, manipulating the war from behind the scenes. The truth was more terrifying than anyone could have imagined. Ancient signals spoke of a race older than both humans and Vexari, puppet masters who had been pulling the strings all along. They called themselves the Eternal Dominion, and they had orchestrated this entire war to weaken both species for their own mysterious purposes. Everything changed during one massive space battle. As human and Vexari fleets tore each other apart, a colossal ship emerged from the darkness between stars. It dwarfed everything else on the battlefield, radiating power that made both sides stop fighting and stare in awe. The Eternal Dominion's message was chilling. They had manipulated both races into destroying each other, clearing the way for their own return to power. The war between humans and Vexari had been nothing but entertainment for these ancient beings. Faced with this revelation, everything changed in an instant. The enemies who had been trying to kill each other moments before now found themselves fighting for the same cause, survival. The real enemy had finally revealed itself, and it was more dangerous than anything either race had ever faced. The alliance negotiations were tense and difficult. Human diplomat General Morrison faced off against Vexari war leader Thane in neutral territory, with both sides bringing decades of hatred to the table. The Vexari, represented by battle-scarred veterans, couldn't forget humanity's recent victories. The humans, led by experienced negotiators, remained wary of Vexari brutality. Trust was almost impossible to find. Neither side wanted to share their secrets or tactical advantages. Some individuals pushed for cooperation, like Vexari strategist Crix, who saw the alliance as their only path to survival, and Captain Sarah Chen, who had witnessed the power of unity in previous battles. But hardliners on both sides fought against any partnership, unable to let go of their anger and prejudice. Despite the challenges, the threat of the Eternal Dominion forced them to work together. The first joint operations were carefully planned, combining Vexari combat experience with human technological superiority. When the Alliance launched coordinated strikes against Dominion strongholds, something remarkable began to happen. In crucial missions, humans and Vexari fought side by side, their different strengths complementing each other perfectly. When they worked together to disable a massive Dominion superweapon, their combined efforts achieved what neither could have managed alone. But trust still came slowly, and misunderstandings nearly caused disasters more than once. The turning point came during a bold attack on a heavily defended Dominion outpost. Human strategic thinking merged with Vexari raw power and determination, resulting in a decisive victory that shifted the entire war. The success proved that their alliance could work, building respect between former enemies. Major battles against the Eternal Dominion showed the growing strength of the partnership. Though internal conflicts still erupted, these epic clashes revealed how powerful humans and Vexari could be when they truly worked together. Warriors from both species began to rely on each other, and initial distrust slowly transformed into genuine respect. Then came the betrayal that nearly destroyed everything. A high-ranking Vexari commander was caught secretly working with the Dominion, sabotaging a critical mission and causing massive casualties. The revelation sent shockwaves through the Alliance, breeding fresh suspicion and doubt. General Morrison and Commander Vex worked desperately to root out the traitor and rebuild trust among their forces. The betrayal's impact was devastating, nearly tearing apart everything they had built. But ironically, it also strengthened the resolve of those truly committed to the Alliance. The final confrontation was everything the war had been building toward. The Human-Vexari Alliance launched an all-out assault on the Dominion's central fortress, throwing everything they had into one last desperate gamble. Advanced human technology combined with Vexari ferocity created a force unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Coordinated strikes hammered the Dominion's defenses while ground forces engaged in brutal close combat fighting. The stakes couldn't have been higher. The survival of both civilizations hung in the balance. Explosions lit up space as the thunder of warfare echoed across the battlefield. Strategic brilliance from human commanders and relentless charges by Vexari warriors began turning the tide. The decisive moment came when a joint strike team penetrated the enemy command center, planting explosives that crippled their control systems. With their leadership in chaos, the Eternal Dominion's grip on power began to crumble. Critical contributions from both sides sealed the victory. Human engineers disabled key defensive systems, while Vexari warriors led fearless assaults that shattered enemy lines. Caught off guard by their enemies' determination and coordination, the ancient Dominion fell piece by piece. When the battle finally ended, survivors from both species stood together among the wreckage. Their immediate reactions mixed relief with exhaustion, victory cheers with somber remembrance of fallen comrades. The war was over, but its cost would never be forgotten. In the aftermath, leaders from both civilizations came together to formalize their partnership. Agreements were signed ensuring mutual support and cooperation for generations to come. The respect and understanding forged in the fires of battle had become the foundation for lasting peace between former enemies.